Friends, Dave Paulides, Canine Missing Project. This is Huck. Yeah, you good girl. Yeah, you good girl. Oh, yeah, scratchy, scratchy. Yeah, good girl. Oh, I know. Yeah, you're a good pup. She's a good girl. She goes, thanks, Dad. Back to taking my nap. Need a nap. Well, remember, friends, Missing 411 National Parks. If you haven't seen it, watch it on Amazon right now. It's one of the top documentaries of the year. I really wish you would go watch it. We could kind of talk on level ground here. And I've got a feeling that the people that make the continual disaster comments about Skinwalker Ranch, they probably never watched one of my movies, never gone down the library, read one of my books. And that's frustrating to me because I spend a lot of time doing research. A lot. And my research has to do all with missing people and related topics. And I don't waste your time, and I definitely wouldn't expect you to waste mine. So when I tell you to watch something or, stay tuned, we've got more details coming up, it's because it's something related. I promise. I got a very, very nice letter the other day. Dave, I'm writing to tell you how much your work and videos help me each day. It is always a pleasure to watch your videos, and I greatly appreciate your encouragement to be kind. Kindness and empathy are two things seeming to be lacking in our society today. Since coming across your work, I've watched every single video you've ever posted, to the best of my knowledge. And I purchased many of the Missing 411 North American Bigfoot website items. I've got about 4 of your Missing 411 books so far, and a poster. Thank you. In writing to you before, I've told you that the tragedy of my son and his psychotic break and the devastating effects that it has had on my wife and me and several other families as well. My son was basically diagnosed bipolar and hid the findings from us as he was 18 years of age and considered an adult. He married his second wife. They lived together with his father and mother-in-law, along with his wife, their daughter, and 2 of their children. I won't go into all the details, but forever changed many lives in one brief moment. None of us will ever be the same. My wife has also been diagnosed with bipolar disorder, and in the last few years has lost her mobility due to scoliosis and possible other contributing factors. She is disabled, and I'm her full-time guardian. I've taught at technical schools. I do with the utmost to take care of my wife and the best of my abilities, and it's especially hard as her family, except her 82-year-old father, does not come around or even call. That is very sad. You know what I found is that if you have a disability, a mental illness, something that can drag other people down, they won't come by. They won't even talk to you. I stated before, after my son took his life, I had probably 35 very close family members. You know how many called me afterwards? 2. Nobody else called. Nobody else wanted anything to do with it. Nobody called to care about me. Nothing. Now, is that a statement about how depraved our world is mentally? Is it a statement about how uncaring people are? I don't know. But I could take it a step further and say, of my 25 closest friends, only 2 of them ever called and directly asked me about Ben and me and how I'm doing. 2. That is what I was the most disappointed about. Back to the letter. I hate to relive and or revive all this, but I wanted you to know that your work, kindness, and caring for your villagers truly help to keep many of us going each day, and at the very least bring a highlight for us to rally around every other day. You're truly a light in the darkness. Thank you for what you do. I won't say who this person is or where he lives, but I read every word of your letter. You're a good person. You know, when you get married, part of that is a commitment to each other for life. For good or for bad, for sickness or health. My dad, he was a pretty cold guy, I think people would say. But when my mom came down with cancer, he was right by her side every day. I gotta admire that, the man. He took care of her. And I think as we get older, we need somebody near us. Unfortunately, it can't be a dog. We need people around us. As much as Huck loves me and I love her, she won't be able to help me to the bathroom when I get really old. Think about that. Think about that every day. And as you get older, it's harder and harder to find somebody to be a partner. You get more hardened in your ways, I guess. Recently, somebody was talking to me about just this. And they said, Dave, how do you have that conversation with somebody if I ever did go on a first date? If I ever went on a first date and somebody goes, well, what do you do? Am I going to just jump out there and say, oh, I research Bigfoot and missing people? It's like dropping a big bomb right in the middle of the table. So how do you broach the topic like that? Yeah, it's something I've had to do once before. And luckily, I put it off and I let the person get to know me. And after they realized I wasn't a nutcase and I was able to think on my feet and I was a good person, I gave her one of my Bigfoot books to read. And I said, you know, if you don't call me again, I'll be disappointed. But I'll understand. There's a lot of connotations that go with Bigfoot that are not true. But then there are a lot that are true. And you can thank our press for a lot of that. Speaking of the press, people brought up the topic many times to me in the last 3 weeks about a guy who says he found a Bigfoot body. Well, that's fascinating, isn't it? Well, there's a whole bunch of problems with that. And I spoke to some of my closest Bigfoot researcher friends. Cliff Barackman said, Dave, that dummy he's showing was used in another hoax about 10 years ago. Bingo. Joe Hauser told me that the university that he said did the DNA tests on that never worked with him. Dave Paulides said he's never released his real name. So you can't vet him. You can't tell who he is. He's never said exactly where he got it. He's never said exactly where he keeps it. And more importantly, he's never had anybody from the Bigfoot world go to examine it. I've done a 110 sample Bigfoot DNA study, nuclear and mitochondrial. Why not call me? Well, I think you know why. And I think that those researchers that just laid that out right there kind of tells you all you need to know about that sample, about that person. But you notice how the news is so eager to jump on it. There's a group of people in the Bigfoot world that don't care about the integrity, the honesty, the truthfulness about a story or about a sample. They don't dig to try to vet the story or vet the person or vet the sample. They just will play it to get views, to get you to watch. And that's a shame. That degrades the entire topic. Now let's get to what we're talking about today. We're talking about Skinwalker Ranch. Now before you leave, hold your taters. I'm not going to go and muddle in why I watch this, why I'm entangled in it, why I was asked to talk to researchers that were in the middle of it, why I've been asked to go to 2 of the biggest conferences in the world that have almost essentially just those researchers. Yeah. Why? Because the best researchers that have ever been there believe that the missing 411 topic is related to what's happening at the ranch. Correct. Which is why I'm interested in it and why I believe that they are making headway. Now, because you don't think they're making headway doesn't mean they aren't. Because you're not a scientist. The people at that ranch and the people who were there under Mr. Bigelow are some of the smartest people you'll ever meet. But you probably never meet them. But I've met them. And I can tell you that these smart people, they wouldn't waste their time. They know time is precious on Earth. And they wouldn't waste it playing some theatrical game like some of you think. It's not going to happen. They are as frustrated as all heck that they're not making huge headway and figuring this out overnight. They're making incremental headway, which is all you can ask, really. Now let's get into tonight's show. This was Season 7, Episode 10. The show starts off at Utah Valley University. Chris Roberts, Thomas Winterton, Eric Bard, they went to the school's chemistry lab to test the specimens that they had found in the mesa. These were found 60 to 70 feet down, small little fragments. They went to 2 different doctors' labs. They were starting off doing FTIR testing of the materials. Chris Roberts, the archaeologist, said that there had been organic matter that had built up on some of these wafers, and he believed they had built up over 1,000 years. Now, previous groups couldn't ID what these things were, and they broke them into a Type A and a Type B. Type A was a flat piece. They tested it, and they found some carbon inside of it, meaning they could date it. And it had carbon-hydrogen bonds inside. And they said, the professor said that they'd have to send it to another lab to be carbon dated. Well, that's interesting. I'd like to know how old it is. The Type B, they looked at it under a black light, and it absorbed black light, but not absorbing infrared light. It was reflecting it. And the professor said this couldn't be carbon dated because it contained no carbon, and it was dramatically different than the first specimen. Then they walked over to another lab. This one, the Type A, they looked at it under a scanning electron microscope, and it kind of looked porous. underneath. It had a checkerboard pattern when you looked at it under low resolution with this porous appearance. The Type B looked entirely different with different materials. And I suppose that made the group a little disappointed that there was such a big difference and they could date one and not date the other. I think they were kind of under the assumption that both were related somehow. It didn't appear that they were. Now, the first break, they came back, they went to the university again. They did an analysis of the element B, and there was oxygen, calcium, phosphorus, aluminum, potassium. The professor commented that those are things that you find in Earth's soil, so probably made by Earth. No, I'm sorry, probably not made by Earth, but different. Type B was naturally occurring. Type A had also magnesium amounts and aluminum, iron, and calcium, significantly different, likely manufactured by someone, was the statement. That was Type A. It was a layered metal piece, they thought, lots of iron. While they were, this is odd. So a lot of times when the ranch does testing, even away from the ranch, things happen that are very odd. And what they were doing is they were looking at this metal piece and they were talking about it and they were photographing it. And the filament that they were using to look at it suddenly went dark, and then the camera went down. The professor said that the filament was only half its age before it should be done producing. But he said all of a sudden it just blew up and failed. He seemed a little stunned. But that is the kind of stuff that happens all the time. And I hate to say this again, but I will. It's almost as though there's a third party watching what's happening. And they don't want you to get too close to figuring out whatever is going on. In this instance, it's as though the entity didn't want them to take a hard look at this piece. So they came back and they went back to homestead number 3. Travis made a statement that it was a building abandoned in the early 20th century by the Locke family. And while that family had been in that house, they had experienced cattle mutilations, livestock mutilations, orbs, etc. And at one point, there was a security guard that worked there under Frugal. And when they found him, he was in a catatonic state. They didn't go into a lot of details about what happened to him, other than that's how they found him. And he turned out to be okay. That's pretty weird. They were trying to determine the heat source from last week from Homestead 3. And then they also said that last week something cloned the 1.6 gigahertz signal that was used from Homestead 2. And Travis said that it clones the signal. Later on in the episode today, Travis said, he said it. It's like it's reading their minds. And before they can even do something, it's doing it. People under Bigelow said the same thing. It's as though it could read your mind and determine what you were going to do. And can you imagine if you're trying to study something and they had that ability and they didn't want you to study it, if they knew you were going to do something, they could just counteract it before it ever started. Which would mean you would really get no studying done. You kind of get why they're being frustrated and why maybe they're not getting anything done. People who have been abducted continually say that the entities that abduct them can read their minds. Well, if they can read your minds and you're thinking about doing A, B, or C, and they read that and that's what's coming, well, then they would be able to counter that before it ever started. So you have a group over here of abductees, thousands of them, who have said this. Then you have the research over here of the people saying it's like these entities know what we're doing. You can't ignore that. I don't care what you think. You can't. And I think anybody rational would say there has to be some association there. Even though Travis and Eric haven't made that association yet to abductees. I think in some ways they're afraid to go there. I mean, the data's thick. Really. PhDs have written books and papers about this. So it's not like it's airy-fairy stuff. It's hard science. Another break. Travis says, it's reading our minds. It's beating us to the punch. That's what he said. And then Travis said that they all carry gamma ray detectors. That was something we talked about before because I never saw them. They weren't obvious, but they carry them. He said right after a 1.2 gigahertz detector went off, the gamma ray detector he was carrying made a weird sound and seized up at a very high level. Now I'm kind of surprised that he didn't get out of Dodge at that point, meaning get out of that homestead. But he stayed. Eric turned on 1.2 gigahertz signal that he initiated. No spikes were seen by Travis. And so there were 700 feet between Homestead 2 and 3. Something appeared to be blocking the signal that Travis was trying to get from Eric. So Thomas and a few other guys started walking towards Travis with the transmitter, seeing when they would pick it up or when he would pick it up. And they walked and walked and walked, and they were halfway there, and Travis said, hey, still no signal. Travis had an antenna, Eric didn't, and Eric said he was still getting the signal when they were halfway there. Then, as they're approaching, suddenly, Travis's computer seizes, locks up. This was after the gamma ray detector seized up. And then Thomas is yelling at Travis, hey, we can hear you, we can see you, can you figure out, can you get our signal? He said, no, my computer just seized up. Well, as they get close to Travis, the dosimeter showed a high-level spike of gamma rays right at the homestead where Travis and now Thomas were at. If you remember, Thomas got hit by a high-level radiation, same as Travis in the past. So Travis said everyone should leave Homestead 2 and go to Homestead 3. Again, that's only 700 meters away. Travis got there, showed Eric his gamma ray detector, said he thought something got into it and fried it. And he showed it, and the screen was just seized on one frame of super high radiation. I don't think that this is something to be screwed with. Thomas in the past had a big boil on the back of his head, like a big lump inside of his hairline. Travis has had burns before. So what's obvious is this entity has the ability to initiate radiation to hurt people. So the people out there that think this is all hunky-dory and it's a great little entity to study, I think they're are parts of it that are dangerous. And I think the guys know this too. In fact, I know that they understand this. Well, they take another break, and then they go into the command center. Well, in Homestead 3, they had already set up laser lights inside, like they did last week. And they wanted to see if they put more smoke inside and that you could see the lasers, if something would cross like it did last week that they didn't see. So as they start pouring smoke in, the lasers are horizontal. They're pointing towards another wall. Just like you'd put up laser lights in an industrial building to pick up burglars that were inside. Burglars cross the light, set off the beam, alarm goes off, you go inside and catch them. I've done that 50 times. Well, they put the smoke in there, and unbelievably, the lights are not horizontal. The lights are at an angle, abrupt angle. And Travis and Eric, physicists, are blown away. They can't understand how this can even do that. Whatever the entity is doing, is it doing it to show how strong it is? Or is it doing it because it's doing something underneath the beams down here so they won't be seen? But a laser is supposed to be a straight beam of light if it's not in an atmosphere, a controlled atmosphere. So the beam is initiated here. It goes straight across. But now all of the beams are going at an angle. They're flabbergasted. Well, Travis says, what's going on? And then they also had dots that they were illuminating from one wall to the other, pointing at another wall, like a very even checkerboard pattern. And they looked at that one wall, and half the wall had it, and half the wall didn't. It didn't make any sense. The guys, if you were half as smart as those physicists out there, and you knew everything they knew about physics, and you see things happening in front of you regularly that defy everything you know, you'd start to feel about that big. Because something is outthinking you, outmaneuvering you, and it's not their fault. Science in the field has never seen this. Caleb asked how the laser's direction could be changed. Travis, this is exactly what he did. Caleb asked that, and Travis goes, psh. Psh. That's exactly what he did. One room showed the lasers. Okay, this is a good one. So then they go to a camera in the next room that has lasers set up just like in the other room. But out of the corner of the camera, you can see into the other room where the lasers were pointed up at an angle. Now they're pointed horizontal. Whoa. What is that? It's like, okay, you're going to look at us in this room. We're going to screw with you. But if you're in this other room, we don't really care. Now we're going to start playing with you in this room. Travis said something hacked the lasers to make it look odd. Something hacked the lasers. Is that the same thing that blew up his gamma ray detector? That blew up his computer? Oh, he said his computer was fried. Then they had a camera looking inside of Homestead 3 from the outside. And it showed this very bright flash. And then suddenly it went down again. And both the guys said, that's not supposed to do that. There's nothing in there that could illuminate anything. What's it doing? What did that? They said maybe radio frequency waves can sometimes do odd things, but they later discounted that kind of, I thought, at the end. Yeah. I can guarantee these guys go to bed every night scratching their head. I did a show for the History Channel called Vanished. And in that we brought in a father and a son that tested speeds of light in front of one of the cliffs at Mesa Verde National Park. And they got a very interesting reading that didn't make sense. It showed that the speed of light was different there, and it shouldn't have been. And I wrote to the owner of the ranch. I made a recommendation. He never wrote me back. I doubt I'll ever hear from him again. But I think it was a good recommendation because I think I'd set that up inside and outside the bubble. I think I'd set it up inside and outside of Homestead 2 and 3. And probably something I would do that they haven't done yet, which wouldn't be that difficult, is I would surround the ranch with lasers. Not the kind of lasers that hurt you, the kind of lasers that detect movement. They don't really know what's moving around out there because they're not looking. And they've already proven that things can walk through the lasers and can't be seen. So why not set up an array around the perimeter of the ranch, and when the beams are activated, it activates a camera at the same time. Does two things. We know that cameras are something that is avoided by the entity. But if the cameras aren't on and a breaking of the beam activates the camera, they may get something very odd. Not very expensive. Easily and cheaply kept on 24/7. And if they did it around the perimeter of the ranch, and maybe even do a checkerboard pattern of these right in the bubble, I think they might find something real interesting. But nobody asked me. Nobody cares. I'm a nobody. But it's fun talking to you about this because you guys give me interesting comments coming back. I hope that the guys keep it up. I like this team. They get along good. I've met everyone except Eric. I haven't met him. Everyone else I've met. Like I said, they're nice people. And the best thing is they're super smart. Now, I do wish that if they have the next season, at least every other episode, they invite somebody on to propose something different. Yeah, obviously they'd vet them before they put them on the show, but I think it would stir it up just a bit, and it would enliven the show just a bit. Just my humble recommendation. Huck's just about snoring right here, right now. Our website, missing411.com. I've got movie posters I'll sign for you. I've got books. I've got DVDs and Blu-rays. Hoodies. Hats. Support us. Missing411.com. Go to Amazon. Watch our movie, Missing 411, Washington State National Parks. And if you do watch it, please leave a review. People said, oh, I don't know how to leave a review. After you watch it, go into your accounts segment on Amazon. You should know how to do that. It says accounts up there on the top right. Click on it. That takes you to all your purchases. Click on a purchase, and that takes you to the location where you can leave a review. Thanks for being here. Paulides out.